Welcome to a very special episode of the 48 Minutes podcast presented by Bet Online. I'm Bruce Bernstein, known as Pure Hoops Bruce on Twitter X. The Boston Celtics are once again on top of the basketball world after finishing off the Dallas Mavericks on Monday night for their 18th NBA championship. We have assembled a group of three Celtics fans who've never met each other, but share a passion for the team and the franchise that created the original basketball culture known as Celtics Pride. But before I introduce our guests, we got to pay some bills here. Bet Online is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season, from baseball, golf, soccer, right up to all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. And when the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. So head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. Our distinguished panel, is time to introduce them now. Arsalan Iftikhar, AI to his friends, is a human rights lawyer and writer who's appeared on some of the largest media outlets in the world commenting on social issues. He runs the website, themuslimguy.com. We met when he was my diversity trainer at ESPN many years ago and immediately bonded over our love of the Celtics. Eric Newman is a filmmaker, producer, and content creator who was my former partner at Pure Hoops Media. He was the executive producer of Showtime Basketball, and he was producer-director of Kevin Garnett, Anything is Possible. He executive produced the first two seasons of the award-winning All the Smoke podcast. He continues to work with KG on his show, KG Certified, and with Paul Pierce on the Truth Lounge, which I attended before Game 2, and it is a blast. Eric runs his own production company, Untouchable Creative, and co-hosts a new podcast, B-Ball Radio, with Radio Hall of Famer Babito Garcia. And Brad from Celtics Post is a friend that I've made on social media. His takes are always well thought out. His passionate defense of Jaylen Brown over the years has made a deep impression on many of his thousands of followers. His fierce defense of all things Celtics should have earned him a playoff share. So welcome, everybody. It's great to have you guys here, and it's great to be able to celebrate the team that we love. I would like to start out by asking all of you, when you started following the Celtics, who your all-time favorite Celtic is, and AI, can you lead us off?
Yeah, Bruce. So I am probably one of the few lifelong Boston Celtics fans who has never lived a day in his life in Boston. I grew up, and I'm 45 years old. I grew up in Chicago during the Michael Jordan era. And, I played basketball my whole life. And I remember the one thing I could not stand about the MJ era Bulls was how fair weather our fans, Chicago fans were. I just couldn't stand it. And then there was this white guy from French Lick, Indiana, named Larry Bird, who, when I was 5 years old in 1981, I was captivated. He was the truth to me, and I became a Celtics fan since I was 5 years old. And so much so, you can imagine, again, growing up in the Michael Jordan era here, that got a lot of crap for being a Celtics fan, in Chicago, Illinois. But I was such a big fan that for my high school graduation present in 1995, on April 21st, 1995, my dad and I flew to Boston to attend the last game at the old Boston Garden. We had floor seats right at the tunnel where all the Hall of Famers came out. I gave every single HOFer a high five. I was 18 years old. The old garden, as you remember, smelled of urine and beer, and like it should. And I've been a fan ever since. And I'll be honest with you guys. I'm gonna put it all out there. I still can't believe that we won. I'm still waiting for the fifth quarter for the Celtics to blow that 21-point lead, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I'm still stunned, and so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Good to be with you all.
All right, Eric Newman, you're from Long Island. So when did you start becoming a Celtics fan? And tell us who your favorite all-time player is.
Yeah, AI, you're not the only one. I am from New York. I'm as New York as it gets besides my basketball team. So my father's from Brooklyn. He picked the Celtics in the 50s, passed it on to me. We're the same age. And the early memories, of course, were, supposedly at 3 years old in 81, when the games were still on tape delay, most of them, I'd be on the couch with my dad watching Bird against Dr. J and just staring at it. And then I have early memories of the 84 finals. And then, of course, the big three, the second half of them. And of course, the unfortunate limited window of Reggie Lewis. That was me. And then after that, I'm growing up in New York amidst 90s Knicks fans. So you can imagine the armor I built up around myself, taking all of that abuse. And, being a media intern in the late 90s at the Garden and wishing this was my basketball team. So for me, and obviously, Bruce, thank you for the very kind introduction. I've been living this storytelling Celtics basketball dream, and I just kept pursuing my passion. So Bird was always the guy as a kid, but KG and Paul are my guys, and being able to work with them and tell their stories and now work with the team and do everything we've done. And, being at the game the other night, Bruce, I was there with Nathan Bronson, who and who I produce so much work with. And Nate, if you hear this or see this, shout out to you and all the great work you do. We looked at each other in the third quarter and we're just like, are we not going to have to stress this? Is this and it was eerie, and we can go into the symbolism and the 6/17/08 and the 6/17/24, but to be able to exhale and just enjoy that garden party, whether you were there or watching on TV, it was amazing. So that's part of my Celtic origins right there.
Brad, you're up.
So I grew up a Celtics fan since as long as I can remember. Probably being born in Boston, being from New England, like all I got was Tommy. That's what made me fall in love with the Celtics. Tommy and Paul Pierce, really. And when I started watching, when it was about like Kenny Anderson era, Walter McCarty, that was my era that I started watching, and I just fell in love with it and played basketball my whole life and just always was a Celtic fan. But I watch every team, and I've always been a big fan of all NBA, but Celtics, I'm diehard. And I didn't get to watch Bird and everybody, so I wish I did, but I feel like I'm a real fan, even though you guys are real fans too, but I feel like I'm a real fan because when I started watching the Celtics, we really weren't good. We came off the Rick Pitino and that era and the Reggie Lewis and Len Bias stuff. So anyways, thanks for bringing me on, Bruce. And I'm just happy, like these guys, I can't believe we won, even though I was very confident that we would win, but I just didn't know. Like, you never know if something's going to happen. Like I was confident because of the team, but our luck has been so terrible for so long that I just felt like, anything could happen. And then when the Porzingis got hurt, thank God for Al Horford. That's all I got to say. Because Al Horford saved us. If we didn't have Al Horford, it'd have been a whole different story. So,
oh my God, can't love Al Horford enough. All right, so mine is John Havlicek. I had the pleasure of spending an hour with him at the Barcelona Olympics talking Celtics basketball. I actually went to my first Celtics game in 1966 against the St. Louis Hawks. Okay, Paul Silas was either a rookie or a second-year player for the Hawks back then, and Bill Russell played in that game. But for me, I mean, one of the greatest moments of my nearly 50-year career is the picture that I think you guys have all seen of Paul Pierce getting the Gatorade dumped on him. I was literally 5 feet away from Doc Rivers when that happened. I was waiting for Mike Tirico to finish up doing the game on ESPN radio because we were going to go out on the court and get some interviews. And then all of a sudden I see this picture. It's like, wait a minute. It's like one of the greatest pictures in the history of the Celtics. And I'm right there. And a few years ago, I got Paul to sign it because I was working on the jump and he was on the jump. And it's just, it's so ironic. It was exactly 16 years to the day that championship took place. So, all right. So we've established everybody's credentials here. Now let's dig into the present. This year's team, 64-18 in the regular season, 16-3 in the playoffs, 80-21, a winning percentage of just under 80%. As we know, the Celtics had been knocking on the door of greatness for several years. So why was this the team that finally busted through that door and won the chip? Brad, why don't you tell us your reasons, or what do you think about that?
Well, there's a few reasons. I would say Jrue Holiday being probably the biggest one. I like when we got him, I knew that we had a chance right then. I knew that with Porzingis, and when we got Holiday, I didn't even have to look at the highlights. Like everybody was showing the highlights. I'm like, I already know how good Jrue Holiday is, and that was probably one of the biggest ones. And he was incredible in the playoffs. It's like he was just practice scrimmaging during the regular season. He didn't, he played great defense in certain games and big games in the regular season. But when the playoffs came, he just flipped a switch and it was like, oh, this is the Jrue Holiday that everybody was waiting for. He just saved it for the perfect moment because he's Jrue Holiday. And, you had so many Bucks fans saying that, he didn't shoot well or he whatever with them, but he was the second option most of the time with the Bucks. Now he comes to the Celtics and he's getting open shots from the Jays and he gets to spend most of his energy on defense. And, even his playmaking was underrated this year. Like every time it seemed like he ran a pick and roll, it worked. And he sprayed the ball everywhere, but he was just letting everybody do their thing. Even Derrick White, you got to praise the unselfishness and then the unselfishness of Tatum and Brown, I think, because Tatum, it was a lot like the 08 season when KG kind of just took less shots, was moving the ball around, and he was more praised for being a selfless pass first player back then. Whereas like Tatum, they want him to be like Kobe, but this was the best, even though he didn't shoot great in the playoffs. This was the best decision-making Tatum ever, by far, that I've ever seen. And I think that just goes to show the unselfishness because he could have tried to score 40 every game, or he could have been like, not getting enough shots. But then my other biggest reason was Jaylen Brown because Jaylen, that's my guy. And I've been sticking up for him for the longest, and he took so much shit. And man, I'm just so proud of that guy. I can't believe the leaps that he made, and just he took everything and he just did what superstars do. And that's why I officially got to say he's a superstar because real superstars, they take I don't have a left hand. I have 8 turnovers in game 7. Everybody's talking crazy about me for months on end, saying no, even Celtics fans saying they'll trade him, saying whatever. And all he did was just channel that into the best way possible. And I think that was and Joe Mazzulla was great too. So those were my biggest reasons.
E, what do you think? What's your main reason this team finally busted through?
I mean, Brad hit on a lot of it, but I think we can't lose sight of the road traveled to get here, like the trials and tribulations. And you look at the history of sports, and not every champion has to have their heart broken on the way to the mountaintop, but many of them do. And you look at the road traveled, you look at Tatum and Brown before they became the leaders of the team, and you forget how many playoff games they played in, and you forget the 18 run. And then, obviously the Kyrie era moved on and they go to the bubble. And in my opinion, they're a Gordon Hayward sprained ankle away from playing the Lakers in the bubble for that title, right? So we forgot how close they were then. And then you come out of that and you're in that crazy COVID season. Brown doesn't even play in that short series. And you look at 22 and the test against the Warriors and the lessons learned, and Tatum playing through injury and losing to one of the greatest players of all time in Steph Curry. And, I was at that 43-point game. There's nothing anybody could have done that night. And then, of course, the battle against the Heat. And, we knew something wasn't right last year. It was this on switch, the off switch, coach getting his feet under him. Obviously, the emotional shock of trading Marcus Smart. And if you guys see the DP light behind me, that's DPOY with Marcus's logo on it. Like, that was my guy. Like, I couldn't believe they traded Marcus Smart.
Same.
But they had to do something. And as Brad Stevens said, they had to make a deal from a position of strength. First, it was going to be Brogdon in that deal. Then it became Smart. And then, I wrote this down when it happened. The gift of Holiday. They were literally gifted Holiday after doing that. And I could sit here and talk about his patience and putting him as the screener and pick and roll and his rebounding. Like, there's so many basketball things to talk about. But the collective group, and Brad Stevens said it the other night to Rachel Nichols in the locker room. He said, I'd rather have my guts ripped out and my heart broken than to stink. And it's going through that journey. And that, obviously, the togetherness, the teamwork. Brad, you hit on the Tatum point, and Jaylen, obviously, but the collective group going through the trials and tribulations, adding those pieces, and finally making it to the mountaintop. Sorry, that was a little long-winded, but now you got me in my feelings.
That was great.
So, AI, your impression, what did you feel was the major factor in getting the deal done this year?
So I'm not even going to pretend that I was even remotely confident that we were going to win the series. So much so that when we went up 3-0, I'm going to be completely authentic with you. I became petrified that we were going to become the first team in NBA history to blow the 3-0.
Oh, man.
I'm not going to lie to you. And any Celtics fan, hold on. I'm going to keep it completely 100 with you. Any Celtics fan who says that they weren't even just a little bit, just 1% terrified, like abjectly terrified that we're going to be the first one to double the 3-0 lead is a GD liar. I'm sorry. I'm going to call you out. You're a motherfucking liar. Because that is what we have always been. For me, I'm going to, I'm still in shock. I'm waiting for the 5th quarter to start where we're going to blow that lead. There's you guys hit on a lot of stuff, but for me, before this year, we didn't have the killer mentality. We didn't have it. And the key to that was both Jaylen Brown and Tatum. I love them both. I think they're awesome. I think they're 2 1As, but they didn't have the killer instinct that we needed to get that chip. They weren't dogs. They weren't DAWG dogs to me. And Bruce and Eric, you'll know this is because of a certain age. Like, do you remember the He-Man cartoons, the Master of the Universe cartoons? Remember He-Man's tiger was Cringer, and then he would become Battle Cat. Right? He was like a scaredy little cat until he put on the armor, he became Battle Cat and was unstoppable. That was Jaylen Brown to me. He was Cringer all throughout his career. He's a nice guy. He's brilliant. I love him. He's a kind human being. Tatum too. They're just nice guys. They weren't dogs like Jimmy Butler who would slap his grandmother for a chip, right? Or even Marcus Smart. Like, I think Marcus Smart was the only dog that we had on our team for many years. But let's be honest, as I always like to say, Marcus Smart played like Marcus Dumb 49% of the time, right? 51% he was Marcus Smart, but he made boneheaded plays for many years. Jaylen Brown, same thing. Like, the left, I like him. Like, I think he just never. This is the year that he became Battle Cat. This is the year that everybody sort of played unselfishly. I'll be again. I wasn't a Mazzulla fan, right? To me, he kind of seemed like, you mentioned the Eric Spoelstra analogy. I think that's a perfect analogy. Like, I think Brad Stevens is playing the Pat Riley to Joe Mazzulla, to be in my opinion. But Mazzulla proved X's and O's that it was the perfect story. And like I said, it's an honor to be a part of it as a fan. I still don't honestly believe it, but it's great to be along with it.
You guys all cited Jrue Holiday and his contributions. The third J, as I like to call him. Okay, he truly was the missing piece for this team. We all loved Marcus Smart. I was very upset when Marcus Smart got traded. And I'm hoping somehow or another that Marcus Smart could somehow return to this group as like the first guard off the bench. I know that Memphis probably wants him to have a bigger role next year. But if there was ever a way that Marcus Smart could come back to this team and be the sixth man or whatever, that would I would be so happy to see that. Not saying it's going to happen. I would love to see it. Yeah. But, our 48 Minutes podcast had a significant role in Jrue Holiday coming to the Celtics. I'm going to go through that quickly. One of my partners, Ross Geiger, is like best friends with Giannis Antetokounmpo. He used to work with the Bucks. And we had Giannis on last summer. And I had asked Giannis, it was like September. I had asked Giannis, I said, hey, Giannis, do you see yourself finishing your career in Milwaukee? And he said, and NBA Today on ESPN ran this whole clip the next day, with his answer where he said, well, as long as the organization shows me that they still want to try and win, I'll be here. So that basically was him telling management, you guys better take a big swing here. And that big swing was getting Damian Lillard. And Damian Lillard, of course, meant that Jrue Holiday was on his way to Portland. And the minute that happened, we got on our next podcast, I said, this is the guy we need. If we get Jrue Holiday on this team, we are a 60-win team, and we're a co-favorite to win the championship at the time, I thought, with Milwaukee. So I feel like it was our little podcast here that had at least some impact on that, for which I will be always proud and happy. And I told Ross, I said, so is Giannis going to come on again this summer and see if we can do some more damage to the Bucks? And he said, no, that's probably not going to happen. But let's go backwards now. Let's go back to the other two Jays, okay? For many years, fans and even so-called experts said that Jaylen and Jayson were not a good fit together. I never bought that, okay? They play the most valuable position in the league, and they got two of them, okay? In watching their growth as a duo, it seems to me they've established a virtual 50-50 partnership at the kind of top of the pyramid for Boston, right? They seem, and that's something most stars are never able to do or choose not to do. It's rare. So what does it say about each guy's priority that they've done something so rare? Brad, why don't you take that one first?
Their priority was to win this year. I feel like AI was talking about last year, it was like something was off, or maybe that was Eric, but last year something was off. And I feel like last year was the focus. And this is just me. Nobody has ever said this to me, but I feel like the focus last year was to get Jaylen All NBA. And I felt like the whole season, maybe not the Celtics like Joe Mazzulla, but Jaylen was more focused on, and the Celtics in a way, because they wanted to secure Jaylen Brown, because if he didn't get his supermax, then he could have wanted to leave. So I just felt like that was kind of like the direction that the team kind of went. And I feel like that kind of threw the energy or the vibe off of the team sometimes. And I think Jaylen came back this year with a mentality of, I'm going to play defense and we're going to win the chip this year. And I think that was the biggest, I feel like that was the goal this year, even though it's the goal every year. I think last year they could have actually maybe possibly won it if they came in with the same mindset that they actually came in with this year. But, that's what happens. But they learned. And like Eric said, you learn from different mistakes and you learn from different things that happen. And Jaylen had to learn this was the best possible thing that could happen. And Tatum probably made the biggest, I would say not the biggest sacrifice, but he just made the biggest decision to decide that, if I get double teamed, which I'm going to get double teamed a lot, I'm not going to try to force it. I'm just going to do the right thing with it. And I think that was the mindset. So when I say and when you said the 50-50, Tatum is probably, he does more, as far as offensively, he does more for the team. But Jaylen is such a leader, and then his on-ball defense is so underrated, and it finally has come to the whole world got to see what he did against Luka. But that's always been important to me. That's one of the reasons why I always stuck up for Jaylen, was because I felt like his defense and his tough shot making in the playoffs. Because in the playoffs, you need a guy that when everything else breaks down and there's nothing else working, you need a guy that's going to go get 25 points no matter what. And that's Jaylen. And so that's how it went.
Eric, the two Jays, equal partners, their priorities?
Bruce, of all the dumb narratives that we've heard,
Hope you're not talking about me here.
No. It's everybody wants the microwave championship. Everybody wants the instant coffee. These guys are not even in their prime yet. And I if you will allow me, I just want to take a historical lens at something for a moment. Since the Bird Magic era started, only 14 franchises have won titles. Do we know how hard it is to win in this league? And the fact that if you go to a conference final or a final and lose, your season is deemed a failure is just absolutely ridiculous to me. So getting two number 3 overall picks with great two-way potential, who, yes, have some overlapping skill sets, but have completely different personalities. And if you really look at it, they're very different offensive players. Has Jaylen become a bit more of a playmaker? Yes, but he is a finisher. And as Brad, you said appropriately about his defense, and AI, as you said about his mentality, he is now that guy who just gets after it. And JT, and, you know, we filmed the Truth Lounge last night, and Paul called it out. Like, he's become such a willing passer, and it starts with his willingness to draw the defense, to not settle for jump shots, to drive through contact and either hit the open man or get the hockey assist. And that's where the real change has become. And I don't care what his field goal percentage was. His game 2, where I think he had, what did he have, 12 assists in game 2 and probably had 4 or 5 more hockey assists. Like, he played an incredible game. I don't care that the shots weren't falling. He's not taking those same shots anymore. And he's a very, very good rebounder. And is he the defender that Jaylen is? He's probably a notch below, but he's damn good in his own right. And, you know, you combine their defense with Holiday and White, and, of course, what Porzingis and Horford give on the back line, along with the ability to switch, trap, and recover. And they're a beautiful duo. I am never going to put them in the same sentence as MJ and Scotty. But look at those two wings and what they achieved because of their versatility on both ends of the floor. And we're in a different time now. It's a different league, but being able to keep these guys together, hopefully for their entire careers as Celtics, they're an incredible duo. And here's the scary part. We haven't seen their best yet.
AI, your thoughts on the two guys at the top of the pyramid?
I mean, the very simple answer, Bruce, is that this is an egoless team. And that's the key. And we don't live in an era where we appreciate egoless teams, right? You need a superstar, you need an alpha dog, you need whatever. And these guys are egoless. It kind of remind me as the sort of like the early Golden State Warriors team. You know, they were just all it's a solid team. I mean, I think that, you know, if you look at our positions 1 to 6, there's no team in the league that compares to us. Now 7 to 10, oh boy, you know, like, I swear to God, when KP went down, I was like, if Luke Cornett touches the floor, we're losing the series, right? Like, cause I was worried. Like, and Xavier Tillman came in when he hit 1 3. I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know who Tillman was. Exactly that. And like, so
I was screaming for that one.
It's an egoless team, which is a breath of fresh air. I think that, you know, to your point, Bruce, you know, if we could bring Smart back as a 7, and then if we fill out 8, 9, like, I mean, now that we won a chip, everybody's going to want to come play for us, right? And so if we can get some solid journeymen to fill out that 7 to 10, then I think we can legit talk, you know, about a potential repeat. Because let's be honest, I mean, the Eastern Conference is inferior to the Western Conference. And that's true. Now, the Celtics are better than the entire league. We proved that this year also. And so I'm not worried. I'm not worried about the East as much as I am about facing, you know, the West, right? So let's say Minnesota comes next year with you know, Ant, Cat, and company. What if Jokic, you know, is like, fuck this, you know, Denver, we're going back again, right? Like, Denver goes like 14 deep, it seems, right? And so I'm really proud of this team because it's an egoless team, and as somebody, who like look at every awesome era in Celtics basketball in modern history. You had the big three of Bird, Mikhail Parrish. You had the big three of KG, Pierce, and Jesus Shuttlesworth. And and those were egoless teams. I mean, they had a bunch of egos, but egoless on the court, right? There's a difference between having an ego as an individual, which you kind of need to have, but an egoless basketball team is something that I think for any fan of the sport is just a pleasure to watch.
I dubbed Holiday and Derrick White the Wardens because they were so good at locking up opposing guards out on the perimeter. Now, the Larry Bird Celtics.
I like that, Bruce. Bruce, I like that a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, and I had that picture of the two of them like doing this that I put up all the time. I thought it was great. Feel free to use it. You don't even have to courtesy me. I mean, if you like it, go with it. But anyway, so the Larry Bird Celtics had the original Dennis Johnson, okay? But I think the Wardens were both like Dennis Johnson 2.0s. I felt all season that their defense and their timely scoring when needed, okay, were huge factors in this team's greatness. And we talked a little bit about Holiday already in that role. But how about do you feel that we're looking at two Dennis Johnson 2.0s? And also, let's say a little something about Derrick White, whatever anyone's thoughts are on D. White. AI, you can go first on this one.
I want to thank the San Antonio Spurs for trading Derrick's ass to us. Like, he was, the man sacrificed two of his front teeth, to help get us that chip. And like, again, it's going back to that egoless team. It's that when Jaylen and Jayson aren't showing up, one of the other guys picks up the slack, right? Because we needed it. I mean, like, we still play a little too much iso ball for my taste, like, dribbling 21 out of the 24 seconds without passing it once. But to have two Wardens, as you say, sort of be the field generals, when our two lieutenants are, like, it's been fantastic. And I've always said, and Bruce, you and I had many debates the Kyrie Irving years.
Your favorite guy.
Well, no, I have like from the minute that we traded for Kyrie, Bruce was thrilled and I was cringing because I knew that he was going to be a team cancer for us. I knew that he didn't make anybody around him any better. Right? He's a fantastic player who makes nobody around him better, and we needed guys who could complement our 2-1-As, right? Who hadn't fully blossomed yet into the rising phoenixes that they've become, and I think having role players again who are egoless, to be able to contribute to that. I think especially in Jaylen Brown's case this year, it really allowed him to flourish both on the court and off.
Brad, what do you got? Derrick White, your thoughts?
I mean, Derrick is a monster, man. When he first got to the Celtics, I used to watch him on the Spurs, but they weren't that good, so I only caught games now and then. But I knew his defense, and when he got to the Celtics, like, he really couldn't shoot that great, but he did everything else. And I tweeted actually that Derrick White is like the guy at the park that he doesn't really shoot a lot, but he never comes off the court because he never loses. Like, and he didn't want to shoot. And then the transition that he made from then to now, where as soon as the ball touches his hand, he's letting it fly. And like, that transition, I think, had a lot to do with Joe and himself. And Derrick looked like he gained a lot of strength this summer too. He looked a little stronger, and he was like, you could tell his arms were a little bigger, and he's always been durable, like 82 games he plays, and the only time he misses a game is if he's having a kid. So like, Derrick is amazing. And like, the thing about him is that, like, between him and Jrue, you can't really run a fast break. It's hard to get, especially when they're trying, like in the finals, you can't. If they get back on defense and you're trying to run a fast break, they're going to block the shot. They're going to steal the ball. It's almost like a turnover. It's almost like an advantage us if Derrick and Jrue are back and you try to run a fast break and they're back there, because they're almost going to do something and we're going to turn around and run back the other way. And so, like, they're incredible. The best. Derrick is also like the most chill guy on the team, I feel like, and he's the guy that everybody just kind of, you can get around him and just laugh, and he's just going to joke around all the time. So I don't know. Derrick is, I hope they need to give him the full max of whatever they can give him. $152 million. You know, everything. Tell him that he's the king of Boston. Make sure he stays. Make sure, you know, because we need Derrick White. He's only 29, and I feel like he's kind of like peaking late because he started he was unclassified. He wasn't even ranked as a high school player. Then he came into college. He wasn't looking like an NBA player. And then finally, you know, Pop saw something in him. He made it. But he's just kind of like started his career like being good late, and I think he's just getting better. And so Derrick's and Jrue, I mean, as long as Jrue stays healthy, and what is he, 33 or 34?
I think he turns 34 this summer, but you know, he doesn't rely on his athleticism at this point. He relies on his brain, and I think he's one of those guys that can play till he's 38 and be pretty damn good.
And you know, he takes care of his body. His wife is like an Olympic soccer player, so you know they eat good in that family. So I'm sure that he's probably taking care of himself. But as long as we have those guys, these four, and of course we want Porzingis to be healthy, so hopefully that happens too. But as long as we got these four and we can just supplement it at the big spot, even if it isn't Porzingis, then I think we have a good chance to have a runway for a long time.
The Wardens, Derrick White, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first off, we talk about Brad Stevens. We got to give it up to Mike Zarin, too. Derrick White was always on his radar, and he was a key architect in making that deal. So there's a lot of comparisons here with DJ. There's also just comparisons of the 86 backcourt and this backcourt, right? The front court got all the accolades. They're the stars. And obviously it's different now. It's not a classic front court the way it is now with more wing play and those guys handling the ball so much. But I've been talking about the Holiday DJ thing for a while along with White, but the improvement of White in many ways, and AI and Bruce, tell me if you agree, Brad, you're too young to remember, like Danny Ainge went from role player to very good player to all-star. And it was because of two things. One, his competitiveness on both ends of the floor, and two, being a knockdown shooter. And Derrick White went from being an average shooter to now, if he misses an open three, I'm shocked. And Paul said it last night when we were just talking off camera just about the team and reflecting on it. He's like, Derrick White clearly put work into his body. He clearly got stronger. He clearly was in great shape. And when he dribble drives down that lane with the right hand and gets that shoulder between him and the defender, that float game is really tough. And I can't say enough about how he's played. Obviously, one of the best defensive guards in the NBA. And, you know, I think Holiday is going to end up in the Hall of Fame now with the body of work that he's had and 2 titles. And of course, Dennis Johnson has 3 NBA championships, 2 with the Celtics, a finals MVP and championship with the Sonics. There's a lot of fun comps and similarities there. And obviously Bruce, Dennis Johnson, one of the clutchest players in NBA history. And as Larry Legend said, the best player he ever played with. So the 6-17-08, the 6-17-24, the comps back to the big 3 and doing it together and everybody starring in their role, as Doc used to say. It's a beautiful thing.
I would hope that every dentist in Boston has emailed the Celtics offering to take care of Derrick White's dental work gratis this summer. And because, you know, I want to see that guy come back with like a smile as good as, you know, any movie stars could be, because
he said he would lose his teeth for a championship, so he did it.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
We're legendary stuff,
for sure. We're starting to run a little bit short on time, and I want to try and hit a few more topics here before I let you guys go. Al Horford finally gets his ring, 17th season. I already felt he was Hall of Fame material, but now his resume is 100% complete. How do you guys feel about Big Al? Do you see any comparisons to Kevin Garnett from the standpoint of leadership and his ability to really coordinate Boston's defensive scheme, keeping everybody on a string out there. I mean, he's not the player that Kevin Garnett is, but I think he has, pieces of Kevin Garnett's game, particularly at the defensive end. Now, I'm going to let Eric go first on this one because, Eric, you know KG, and none of us really do. What are your thoughts on that?
They are pretty opposite personalities. And, you said it best, like Al doesn't sniff KG as far as, height of game, but the glue and being that communicator, leader, and Al is a veteran presence in his own way. I was very critical of Al in 2019 when there was no voice in that locker room and everything crashed and burned after being 24 minutes away from the finals in 2018. And then Al left. And I said, wow, I thought this guy was about being here and about winning with the Celtics. And obviously he had to do what he had to do business-wise and take that money. But bringing him back, another just genius move. And look how it turned out. I couldn't be happier for Al. I was in the presser the other night and he was ecstatic. So Bruce, he has been the key on so many nights, whether it's battles with Embiid, battles with Giannis, but professionalism, team defense, the insurance behind Porzingis. Correct me if I'm wrong, 17-year career now, right? Yep. This was year 17, has only missed the playoffs once, 6-time All-Star, NBA champion, 2-time NCAA champion. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame. Al Horford is stamped, and Al Horford is a tremendous model for what a professional should be. He was an all-star caliber player, and his longevity has now been due to his willingness to take a limited role, staying in great shape, and always staying ready. So salute to Al Horford.
AI, tell us your thoughts on Big Al.
Yeah, I mean he was the maturity that we needed, right? He was Uncle Al. He was the old head on the court when things were getting chippy out there, that always was able to bring everybody back together. I mean, and we cannot not underscore the importance of maturity on the basketball court. Somebody that the young heads could lean on when the pressure got too big, too much. He filled in honorably for KP. He is Uncle Al is the best. I'm really happy for him after his long NBA career. He finally gets the ring that he's so rightfully deserves.
Brad?
I mean, first off, KG is probably the best defensive player I ever saw in my life. So let's just get that out the way right away. But Al Horford's IQ and KG's IQ, always being in the right place, always knowing the right thing to do. They just, communicated it differently, obviously. But Al looked like KG on those switches on Luka in the finals. So that was the best. Al Horford, man, and he's coming back next year. I know he said he's coming back. I hope he's, close to the same player. But that was my biggest worry, and that's probably my biggest worry going forward. But my biggest worry this playoffs was, especially when Porzingis went down, is Al going to get tired? He wasn't tired. He was out there guarding Luka. He was grabbing rebounds. How many big rebounds did he get in the finals? Just jumping over people. He never jumps that high, and he was up there. So, and bringing him back, Brad's a genius. Every move he made was right. I don't think he ever made a bad move, except for maybe signing Dennis Schroeder. But then he went ahead and traded him and got, I can't remember what trade that was, maybe Daniel Tice or something. But
Tice part 2.
Yeah, Tice part 2. But Al Horford, we need him, and we need him again next year because, as good as Tillman hitting 1-3 and doing all, and he's really going to defense, he needs to be closer to Al before we just trot him out there like he's Al. And so we need another year from Al. Hopefully he comes back ready to go. But man, he got that championship and 2 Florida national championships. one of the best. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if 42 gets retired. I mean, they retired every other number, especially if we go on and win another championship. But yeah, Al's the man. Al, if they wouldn't have done it without Al, they needed every single person. But without Al leading, and I think Tatum listens to Al the most, just because Al only talks when he has something to say, and so like you can't not listen to him, and he's been doing it for so long. And so I think Tatum listens to him a lot, and so that's a big deal too. And having the ear of the best player is a big deal. So that he was one of the main glues with Jrue.
Can I just say one thing before we stop?
Absolutely.
And it's on Al Horford, but I had to say this one time, that Peyton Pritchard only hits half-court shots. He only.
That's all we'll remember. We won't remember all the other.
He was terrible. He was absolutely terrible. And the two times that he wasn't actually trying to make it, he made it. Like during the series, I remember watching him. Like, can we trade Peyton Pritchard and like 14 lobster rolls for Dante DiVincenzo and 3 slices of cheese? But yeah, I just had to say that Peyton Pritchard only hits half-court shots.
Okay. We only have a couple minutes left. I know I got to let you guys go. So I'm going to ask everybody to give me quickly just a thought on Joe Mazzulla. His doubters were everywhere. When he stepped in to replace Ime Udoka last season, they were all over him. But his critics are nowhere to be found now. AI, you kind of referenced earlier how there's some kind of echoes to Eric Spoelstra and the way Pat Riley backed him up when people were kind of down on him. So if everybody can give me a solid 30 seconds, your thoughts on Joe Mazzulla before we wrap this bad boy up. AI, you're first.
I am an honest man, and I will tell you that I was one of those doubters. For the last couple of years, I was like, how is this guy a head coach in the NBA? And I was proven. I'm thrilled that he finally won it. He's kind of a weird dude, so we went from like a freaky ass dude in Ime Udoka to an awkward dude in Joe Mazzulla as head coach. But yeah, he's great, and like I said, it's part of the egoless team is having an egoless coach, and I think that cannot be underscored.
Brad?
I mean, Joe is, like I was saying, he's born to be the Boston Celtics coach. Like you see him walking around the North End, and he loves the Celtics, and he would literally look you dead in the eyes and be like, "There's nothing better in the world than I'm the coach of the Boston Celtics," and that's what you want from your coach, especially that breeds into the players too. Like if you have a coach that doesn't really like Ime, he probably didn't even care. Like he wouldn't have walked around Boston with the trophy. He wouldn't, in my opinion. But anyways, it's not a shot at Ime because he was also a great coach. But Joe has done great, and you listen to all the stuff that on the Wired and that all the things that he was doing in the press conferences, like where he was memorized plays and memorized things that happened in the game, and you just listen to the guy. He's a psycho about this stuff. That's what you want. Like Bill Belichick was a psycho. You want a psycho about the sport. And I just feel like Joe, I always stuck up for Joe. I did lose faith in him when we went down 0-3 against Miami. And then when we came back against Miami, I felt like Joe learned a lot in that series, and he grew into his own this year. I feel like people think he's a weird dude, but he kind of accepts it and embraces it. And he doesn't be like, oh, everybody thinks I'm weird. He's like, yeah, I'm fucking weird. And I'm good at what I do. And so he's always been confident, and I think people took that as arrogance, but he did it, man. And I think he's only going to get better now. I think all the Celtics are going to be better now because their confidence is going to be. They want a chip now, and they're going to. All that pressure is going to be like, oh, you can't tell them nothing now, So I just feel like Joe did a great job.
Eric Newman, you get the last word here. Joe Mazzulla.
I mean, the greatest example of a guy being true to himself. He stuck with his beliefs. He got put into a almost impossible situation last year and was a Tatum sprained ankle away from making history and coming back from 3-0 down. And Brad, you said it. He's going to continue to get better. He is completely committed to this. He's from the area. You have to believe in yourself. I didn't just magically fall into making KG's film. That was a self-belief that started in 2008 when I was like, I want to be a filmmaker one day. That's the guy's story I want to tell because he's inspiring me every night. Joe Mazzulla was meant to be a coach. We saw that when he was a college player playing for Coach Huggins. And KG and Paul visited practice last year. We had a quick moment with Coach on camera. And you could tell he was still finding his way. He wanted to learn. He soaks things up. He studies. He's committed. He's his own man. He obviously has a strong religious and spiritual beliefs, and he channels all of that into being the best coach he can be, the best leader. And he says he loves to give and he loves to work with people. And look at what that commitment has done, and look at the results. So shout out to Coach Mazzulla, and what a window we have ahead as Celtics fans. This is exciting. And Bruce, thanks for doing this today. This is a great way to continue to celebrate Banner 18.
Well, first of all, I would like to echo those thoughts. And I want to thank all three of you guys, Eric, Newman, AI, Arsalan Iftikhar, Brad from Celtics Post, my Twitter pal. And thanks for being on this special edition of 48 Minutes presented by Bet Online. Russ Geiger and Michael World Be Free are going to be back with me next week. So I hope all of you guys enjoy that duck boat parade. And once again, congratulations to us. We got this, right? We got this thing here. So congratulations to us. And hopefully we'll be, running back again next year. Thanks, fellas.
Thank you.